listeners. This is Ivan Franklin Rose, and this is the one on saying goodbye to imposter syndrome. Sometimes we feel like we're representing ourselves and we're not really good enough for what we're representing. Sometimes we feel that things are going too good in our life and we're just living a false life. We're just an imposter living in a world that can't be true. Or we're representing ourselves in a way that we're just not happy with, that we can believe that it's going to work out great, that everything's going to work out fine. So today, we're going to learn how to say goodbye to imposter syndrome. In an article in livehappy.com by Sandra Bilbray, she says, use these 9 steps to quiet your inner critic and appreciate your achievements. Imposter syndrome is a secret held by many, even the highest of achievers. Award-winning actress Tina Fey once said, the beauty of imposter syndrome is that you facilitate between extreme egomania to a complete feeling of, I'm a fraud. Oh my God, they're on to me. The late acclaimed author and poet Maya Angelou described the syndrome like this. I've written 11 books, but each time I think, they're going to find out now. I've run a game on everybody, and they're going to find me out. Even Maya Angelou, who was terrific and amazing as a writer, and her content, while not a diagnosable psychiatric condition, imposter syndrome is a very real feeling. First described in 1978 by American psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes as a sense of phoniness in people who believe they are not that intelligent, capable, or creative despite evidence of high achievement. People believe they are a fraud, she says, that they are not as competent as they appear or as other people believe they are. And this is actually a quote from Judith Beck, PhD, a psychologist and author and daughter of cognitive therapy founder Aaron Beck, PhD. People with imposter syndrome tend to believe that they have achieved this due to luck or fooling others. They fear others will discover their incompetency or inadequacy. Sometimes it's a cause of fear, dread, and anxiety. High achievers are especially prone to feeling like imposters when taking on a new risk or pushing their abilities to a new level. It becomes a problem when people consistently undermine and underestimate their abilities and feel unduly anxious, Judith says. It's also a problem when they try to hide their incompetence by failing to ask questions, seek help, and assert their opinions. Imposter syndrome is linked to perfectionism rather than low self-esteem, but it also can happen in social relationships. People who suffer from it might attribute their success to luck, discount their own success, and live with a sense of dread that others will uncover their real self, says behavior coach Mikhail Mantel, PhD. Despite obvious success, individuals may feel a strong sense of self-doubt. Imposter syndrome causes people to avoid taking risks and settle for less than what they want because they fear being found out as a phony. The feelings of anxiousness and dread that accompany imposter syndrome cloud happiness as well. Where did it come from? Well, most people have some insecurities about their competence in various aspects of their work, says Judith. People with imposter syndrome have achieved what they believe is undeserving success. Thinking thoughts like I'm not deserving is a key distinguishing element between the imposter syndrome and simple generalized insecurity. Children who grew up in high-pressure school or home environment that rewards accomplishment and criticizes anything less than perfection have a high chance of experiencing imposter syndrome. Another contributing factor is having parents who heap praise on a youngster who doesn't believe he or she deserves it, according to Judith. Getting rid of the imposter is important. So by facing imposter syndrome for what it is, you can begin to accept your accomplishments as real, adopt more rational ways of thinking, and quiet your fear of being exposed as a fraud. Use these tips to shift away from perfectionism and move toward a more realistic view of yourself. By quieting your internal critic, you can take risks and enjoy the happiness that comes from living your life more fully. Use cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT techniques. Ask yourself, is what I'm thinking actually true? Move toward more realistic thinking. Look for evidence that you're really incompetent and for evidence that you are competent, recommends Judith. Ask for feedback from other people. People with imposter syndrome can change their definition of competence from always performing at the highest level to doing a reasonable job most of the time, she says. Talk about it. Take your feeling out of the shadows and talk about imposter syndrome with a friend or professional. Seek out people who will support you. Measure your accomplishments with your own ruler. Look back at your accomplishments, obstacles you may have overcome, results you have materialized, and give yourself some credit. Believe those solid realities are not your own bad press. And next, identify who you are lying to. The ironic part of the imposter syndrome isn't about the lie we think we are perpetuating on others. It's about the real, unrealistic belief, the lie we aim at ourselves, says Michael. Recognize that you are not a fraud. And next, let go of perfectionism. Stop telling yourself that you must never fail, says Michael. Just because I tripped and made an error doesn't mean I'm an imposter or a fraud. It means I'm human. Use the 3 C's. According to Michael, with most emotion distortions, with most of them, you have to catch your erroneous automatic negative belief, challenge it, and change it. Be mindful and aware enough to be able to hear yourself saying unkind and critical things to yourself, and then catch, challenge, and change those thoughts, which makes perfect sense. Build an unconditional self-acceptance into your daily life. Practice rational responses to your negative self-talk. Write out actual rational responses to each negative thought you build around yourself. For example, instead of, I'm not deserving, breathe deeply and think, it isn't about deserving, it's about actual accomplishment, and I've certainly worked hard and achieved X, Y, or Z. Change your thinking, reframe your thoughts. We had a podcast on that, refer to that to help here. Think about the value you provide others. Shift the thoughts away from you and on to how you can help others. This mental shift can take you out of your mind and into the positive emotions you give to others around you by helping other people. Take risks and don't compare yourself to others. Don't compare and despair, Michael advises. When you want to do something big but feel afraid, you will fail because you are not the right person, not deserving, not good enough. Take that risk and say to yourself, I don't know what I'm doing, but let's give it a try and see what happens. This practice can be wonderfully healing, and it makes perfect sense. When you take steps to face your self-doubt and quiet the feeling of imposter syndrome, you can stop letting your fears get in the way of becoming who you want to be. Now, there are 3 more articles that I thought were relevant here. We're going to go to the first one now, which I'm going to add to these 9 points. The first is overcome your inner bully. So, to that regard, we're going to go to an article in livehappy.com on 10 ways to overcome your inner bully. Don't let negativity stop you from living positively. We all have an inner bully, but the fight to overcome our critical voice can help us remove the obstacles that may be getting in the way of personal happiness. In her new book, Live Your Gift, Discovering Your Authentic Life Through Life Mapping, author Dana Adams gives people strategies to overcome their inner bully to discover their unique purpose and gifts. So here are 10 things. First, recognize that you get to choose. You have an inner bully and an inner cheerleader. Which one will you listen to? That internal bullying voice that so many of us have, it may even more powerful than the helping voice in some of us, the one that's wise and trying to guide us to do our best work, and the one that and can be the best we can be, the one who guides us to be the best we can be. The good news is we can practice silencing the critic and listening to our wise cheerleader instead. So that's the point. We have the choice of who to listen to in our brain. We have free will, and you can choose to listen to the bully or the cheerleader is the point there. So break up with your inner bully. Pinpoint where the inner critic is coming from so you can detach from it. Did it start from a specific event? Was it a time when you felt like you didn't fit in or were criticized? When you can identify where it came from and realize it's not about you and you can let go of it. The negative voice is something that we create. It's a story we tell ourselves. Practice detaching from the inner bully. Be careful what information you believe. It's important for all of us to realize that when someone is giving you advice, critiquing you or telling you something about how you're acting, they're viewing your behavior from the experience in their world, from their experience and their world. What others say doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you. Too often, we take what's said at face value, putting great stock in it, when it's not even true. Words from others can strike a nerve or hit a trigger point where we might already be insecure, pounding that unhealthy message in even deeper. This impact can hold you back and cause you not to play to your full potential. So don't listen to it. Lean toward your wiser inner voice more than outside influences. Yes, that bully voice can come from many external sources. It's common to feel the weight of outside influence from their friends and family who are really important for a sense of acceptance. The critical voice also can come from teachers, coaches, and even parents. Work to see the long-term ramifications of your choices, even when you may only be focusing on what's right in front of you. And as parents, you can help by walking your kids through potential ramifications of their choices so they consider the impact on their future at a much bigger scale. Don't live for approval of others. One of the biggest ways the inner bully can hold you back is when you become more concerned about how you're showing up and what you look like, not only in your appearance, but in the way you act. When you start filtering everything through whether people are going to approve or disapprove of something you might try, even if it's something you love, you might suddenly change your mind and not do anything at all. When we aren't willing to express ourselves in ways we are meant to, those roadblocks can show up suddenly. This can result in not getting the approval we want, and suddenly we change our mind about doing something. Protect yourself from your insecurities. The inner critic starts its chatter on your insecurities, so where you don't feel as confident, you are more likely to hear the chatter of, "Are you really sure you want to try that? What if you look dumb? What if people make fun of you? What if you fail?" You don't have any experience in this yet. This is when you have the choice to recognize that this is just the critic speaking to you, and you don't have to listen to the critic. Be aware of the inner bully that can go straight for your insecurities. So that's when you have to fight back the hardest and not listen and choose your positive voice and path instead. Next, realize life is learning. Insecure chatter is unfortunate because it can stop people. But instead, we need to realize that this is how we learn, by trying and experimenting. This is how we begin to understand what we do well or what excites us. When we allow ourselves to discover our interests, we can choose to spend more time enjoying them. If we don't even try because the voice inside is stopping us, then it really becomes a problem. It's a dream crusher. You don't want your dreams crushed, and you're in control of that. The critic doesn't speak the truth. The reality is that much of that critic lives up in our head. It's not the truth. Replace the inner bully voice with the wise words. How would the older, wiser you guide your younger self? Realize setbacks give you valuable information to get you ahead. Our insecurities and inner critic are all wrapped up with our fears. When you fail or things don't work out for you as you hoped, ask yourself, what did I learn? This information becomes powerful moving forward. When we don't get the result we want, we can realize that the experience still moved us ahead because of what we learned. Then we ask, what can I do differently in the future? And we can also say, you know what? Good job for trying in the first place. Acknowledge that you tried. You gave it your best. Inspire others to defeat their inability is next. Another powerful impact of courageously trying something new is it gives other people around us the permission to do the same. When we are more confident in our own choices, we can calm the bully voice and say, you know, that's not real. That's a fear-based voice, and instead say, I am capable. I can do this. I am ready. It's a much more empowering place to be, and you just might inspire others along with you. Refer to my podcast on positive affirmations and negative self-talk versus positive self-talk. This can enhance this area right here. But certainly this is something to consider when you're talking about the subject of imposter syndrome. Okay, the next is going to be self-compassion we're going to talk about, because this is another way to overcome imposter syndrome. and control your inner critic. This is in an article by Live Happy by Paula Phelps. She says, self-compassion plays a crucial role in our body image and happiness. Could repeating words of acceptance and kindness change the way we see ourselves? According to the research, it may. While self-compassion has been identified as being a crucial component in creating and sustaining personal happiness, research shows that self-compassion meditations or guided affirmations that encourage us not only accept our imperfections, but to embrace and appreciate them, also play a major role in the way women perceive their bodies and men and how we care for ourselves. Kristen Neff, PhD, author of Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself, completed a study showing that women who listened to self-compassion meditations for 3 continuous weeks improved both their body image and their sense of self-worth. What's more, those feelings remained when the women were tested 3 months after the study's conclusions. That's very powerful. The power of positive thinking absolutely works. I can tell you in my own life and in my dear friend's life and my family's life that I advocate that to them. It has worked in all of these cases. Women tend to be more critical of themselves, says Kristen, an associate professor of human development and culture at the University of Texas at Austin. But they also have a greater capacity for compassion. When they listened to self-compassion meditations, they found themselves learned to silence their self-critic and become happier overall with their body image and sense of self. Women and men with improved body images have greater levels of self-confidence and happiness and less social anxiety about their appearance. It changes your basic relationship with yourself, Kristen says. The biggest relationship we have in our life is the relationship with that voice in our head, the self-critic. Unfortunately, she adds, many of us have an exceptionally harsh inner critic, relentlessly judging every flaw and misstep, regardless of how small or unavoidable it may be. And since it's an internal conversation, no one steps in to silence that inner bully. Self-compassion can create the buffer we need to silence the critic and give ourselves a break. When you become more conscious and choose to treat yourself better, she says, you change that conversation. It's a growing movement. Many of the principles of self-compassion are rooted in Buddhist principles, but self-compassion is also now widely embraced by Western psychologists. According to Kristen, self-compassion essentially means we become as nurturing and compassionate towards our own flaws and shortcomings as we are to our friends and loved ones. Studies have associated with better performance in the classroom and on the job, as well as improved family relationships and self-confidence in social situations. Simply being good to ourselves makes us feel more deserving, and that launches a cycle of becoming more committed to self-care. While she wasn't the first to study self-compassion, Kristen is certainly seen as a pioneering researcher in the movement. Today, the demand to learn more about self-compassion is so great that she has created workshops on the subject, and the movement has given birth to numerous books, blogs, and even college courses. Kristen believes the exploration of self-compassion has become popular because it counters the self-criticism that bars many of us from achieving our goals and discovering our true personal happiness. Some of our inner voices are quite cruel, she says. We say things to ourselves that we would never say to others, and what we say to ourselves makes a huge difference in our ability to be happy. It helps us feel safe, and that allows us to feel happier, less stressed, and more creative. Isn't that the point what we're trying to achieve? Barbara Markway, PhD, was so inspired by Kristen's writings on self-compassion that she launched the Self-Compassion Project in 2012. Similar to Gretchen Rubin's The Happiness Project, in which Gretchen spent 1 year exploring different studies and theories about how to be happy, Barbara's 1-year plan was to create an online forum for connecting and discovering more about self-compassion. Although she is a psychologist, Barbara says this was a personal project rather than a professional endeavor. If there's one thing I need to work on, it's being kinder to myself, she says. I realize that I'm not good at nurturing myself, and I think women connect with it because we're all too hard on ourselves. She was surprised to learn how quickly self-compassion can be integrated into daily thinking, even when self-criticism is deeply ingrained. The surprising thing was to learn that self-compassion is not that hard, Barbara says. It's just a case of needing to learn to do it for ourselves. You don't have to spend years in therapy. You just have to learn to be gentler and less hard on yourself. And once you've learned that, even when you get down on yourself, you won't be as hard on yourself for as long. Kristen agrees, learning to be compassionate to ourselves isn't difficult. It simply requires becoming aware of our own self-talk and self-defeating behaviors. Write a letter to yourself from the perspective of an imaginary friend, she says. What would this friend say to you from the perspective of unlimited compassion? Write with understanding and acceptance, and then read it again a few moments later and feel the compassion. This is a great idea. She also suggests keeping a journal in which you review the day's events, jotting down anything you felt bad about or judged yourself for. Afterward, add kind words of comfort in a gentle, reassuring tone and encourage yourself to do better next time. We've talked about journaling in the past as a way of relieving stress and anxiety. This is another use for it. Barbara points to the fact that many studies say learning self-compassion can make us less depressed and anxious, and says she saw herself becoming less worrisome and less of a perfectionist as she explored the concept of self-compassion. Kristen says that a common transformation, and a lasting one, is here. In all the studies we've done, all the gains lasted at least 1 year, Kristen says. The great thing is we all know how to be compassionate to others. We know how to be kind, how to be supportive to others. With self-compassion, you just have to be conscious and choose to treat yourself better. That is fantastic advice. And lastly, we're going to talk about the fear of failure as a reason for the imposter syndrome, and talking about facing failure head on with these essential tools from, again, livehappy.com. Humans are resilient. Think of how many times you failed to walk as a toddler before you got it right. That resilience is still inside you. The question isn't if you'll fail, but what you do with that experience. Will you shrivel up and hide, or will you stand tall in your effort, gain wisdom from your failure, and get back out there to accomplish your goal? The latter is called grit. University of Pennsylvania professor Angela Duckworth defines grit as passion and perseverance toward a long-term goal. Her research suggests that the grittier you are, the more successful you will be. So next time failure, or fear of it, rears its ugly head and you want to try to hide, try this instead. Number 1, acceptance. Venting, denial, and self-blame in the face of failure can lead to a sense of powerlessness and something called learned helplessness, which is closely linked to depression. But according to positive psychology founder Martin Seligman, PhD, you can also choose to learn optimism instead. When you fail, you can see it as temporary, isolated, an opportunity for growth. To fail and come back again, that is strength. We all fail, and most of us feel ashamed when we do. The sooner you accept this human truth with kindness and self-compassion, the happier you'll be. Research from NYU School of Medicine shows that acceptance versus suppression reduces anxiety and suffering. Plus, research from 2014 shows that self-compassion can improve resilience, optimism, and self-efficacy. Accepting that you'll never be perfect. Rather, laugh at yourself for wanting to be perfect and move on. Positive reframing. Too often, our lesson from failure is not to try again. That holds us back from love and purpose and joy. Instead, reframe failure as an opportunity to learn new skills, enhance creativity, and become a better problem solver. Find the nugget of wisdom, strength, or encouragement in your failure and apply it to the next opportunity. Then get back on track and focus on your long-term goals. I want to refer to a study at Kent University before we go further into these tools, because it applies here with reframing. New research from the University of Kent has revealed that positive reframing, acceptance, and humor are the most effective coping strategies for people dealing with failures. In a paper published by the international journal Anxiety, Stress, and Coping, Dr. Joachim Strober and Dr. Dirk Janssen from the University School of Psychology described a diary study, that found these 3 strategies to be the most effective in dealing with small failures and setbacks and helping people to keep up their spirits and feel satisfied at the end of the day. For the study, a sample of 149 students completed daily diary reports for 3 to 14 days, reporting the most bothersome failure they experienced during the day, what strategies they used to cope with the failure, and how satisfied they felt at the end of the day. Their coping strategies included using emotional or instrumental support, self-distraction, denial, religion, venting, substance abuse, self-blame, and behavioral disengagement. This is an interesting study. Of these, using social support, both emotional and instrumental, denial, venting, behavioral disengagement, and self-blame coping had negative effects on satisfaction at the end of the day. The more students used these coping strategies in dealing with the day's most bothersome failure, the less satisfied they felt at the end of the day. That's very interesting. In contrast, positive reframing, which is trying to see things in a more positive light, looking for something good in what happened, acceptance and humor coping had positive effects on satisfaction. The more students used these coping strategies in dealing with failures, the more satisfied they felt at the end of the day. In other words, this was more important even than getting support from friends. Changing your thinking was the most effective way to change what's going on in your life. Dr. Stober, a leading authority on perfectionism, motivation, and performance, believes that the findings of the study will be of significant interest to clinicians, counselors, and anyone working on stress research. He said, finding that positive reframing was helpful for students high in perfectionism and high in perfectionistic concerns is particularly important because it suggests that even people in high in perfectionistic concerns who have a tendency to be dissatisfied, no matter what they achieve, are able to experience high levels of satisfaction if they use positive reframing coping when dealing with perceived failures. He added that a helpful recommendation for anyone trying to cope would be to try to find positive aspects in the outcomes they regard as failures and reframe these outcomes in a more positive way. For example, by focusing on what has been achieved rather than on what has not been achieved. It's no use ruminating about small failures and setbacks and drag yourself further down, he said. Instead, it's more helpful to try to accept what happened, look for positive aspects, and if it is a small thing, have a laugh about it. So this is from the study at Kent, which I thought was apropos over here. Okay, now we're going to continue with these points, these essential tools to face failure head on. The next is stay focused on long-term goals. All successful people have one thing in common: failure. Think about Apple's original Macintosh or times when Michael Jordan missed a game-winning shot. If Steve Jobs, or Michael or J.K. Rowling, who wrote the Harry Potter novels, had given up easily, we wouldn't be able to enjoy their eventual colossal success. When you fail, step back from the momentary challenge and remember the bigger prize. Angela Duckworth's research found that achieving difficult goals requires sustained focus over time. And the next point is take a risk. It is simple enough. You won't get anything unless you try. Start with something small. Let yourself fail. Do it again and again until you succeed. Let that small success be fuel to try something a bit bigger. The more you overcome fear of failure, the more motivated you will be. If you find you need more help, hire a coach, join a support group. You deserve to live fully. You deserve to thrive. I hope these points were helpful to you. We can choose to let ourselves bully ourselves with our mind or accept the life coach that everyone has inside of them, the cheerleader that encourages them to grow, the cheerleader that says, maybe I'm enough, maybe I'm okay, the cheerleader that says you can do it, you can be what you're trying to be and what you're purporting to be. I suggest that you root for the cheerleader. Cheer for the cheerleader and not the bully, not your inner critic, and live a happy, fulfilling life. And with that note, I urge you to wake up every morning with a smile, as I always do. Find some reason to smile, something to be happy you're alive, something to feel that there's a possibility of a positive day. Until next time, listeners, have a wonderful day.